Welcome back to 5 Sports. This is our mid-season finale as starting next week we'll be going back to SpiritLive for our live radio show. So if you like hearing us here, please tune in to SpiritLive starting next week every Wednesday from 12 to 1. But that's next week. This week we have a great show for you. We got more about the NBA Finals, more breakdown of the NFL Week 4, and more news on the Premier League because there seems to be something going on in the Premier League. Let's start the NBA. Lakers versus Miami. Lakers up 2-1. Miami coming back or taking a game even without Bam and Goran Dragic. Jimmy Butler put up a historic game. What are the takeaways of the series so far? Evan, let's start with you.
My takeaways are just the Lakers have more size, and that's kind of given them the advantage through 3 games. But the Miami Heat play with heart, and attitude matters so much in the NBA. And we've seen throughout the playoffs, and I think we've learned a lot about this Miami team because you learn a lot about certain players and certain teams in the playoffs, and that's what's happened with Miami. We saw it when they took Milwaukee in 5. We saw when they beat Boston. We're seeing it now. They shouldn't have a chance, especially without Bam Adebayo or Goran Dragic, because no one could really match up with Davis now that you don't have Bam. But, Jimmy Butler found a way. And the crazy thing is, I know he believes that Miami should be favored. And it's a strange mindset to have because, any, general fan knows that the Lakers should win. But that's why everyone was calling for a sweep. But, I knew that this Miami Heat team was not going to get swept. They play with too much heart. They have too much passion. They're too well coached. And Jimmy Butler, that's really all you need to say about that Game 3. An all-time great performance. And the craziest stat, I think, is that LeBron has never been outscored, out-rebounded, and out-assisted by one player in a single finals game until Jimmy Butler stepped onto the court in Game 3. So credit to him. He's made an interesting series, and it's going to make us tune into Game 4 because I think a lot of people kind of gave up on this team after the first 2 games, but all of a sudden they have people's attention now. So hopefully Miami could keep making it interesting because if the Lakers take Game 4, then it's 99% likely that the Lakers are going to end up winning the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Personally, even though I do still have, previously I predicted the Lakers to take a series, and I still do. I mean, I thought it would be a close series, relatively close. And I don't think that people should count Miami at all because they've proven that even without Bam and Dragic, Jimmy Butler could carry his team to victory. And I mean, we talked about last week how players need to bring their best, and Jimmy Butler, when he brings his best, it will be better than what we've seen from LeBron and Davis so far. And they've been having a great series too. They've been playing well for the most part. And Davis had a weak game, Game 3, but for generally, both teams have been playing well. And yeah, you can't count out anyone really. It's going to be a close series. I think if Miami takes Game 4, then Lakers should be very worried about the fact that they're going to lose the championship.
The problem is it just seems so improbable the Miami Heat can win this series, mostly because of injuries. You need really a fully healthy squad, to beat LeBron and Anthony Davis, who are 2 top 5 players in this league. But you're not going to get that Jimmy Butler performance 4 times.
Yeah.
It's every game is unique and different in all of sports because you don't know what you're going to get. But the odds of Jimmy Butler playing like that on a regular basis against a professional team, team make adjustments, that they understand kind of what they did wrong. They look at tape, they review, and then they improve. That's what Miami did after the first 2 games. And the Lakers were torching the zone. Miami's like, okay, we see what you're doing. We're going to make our adjustments, and we're going to make it a lot more difficult. We're not going to let you beat us the same way that you did previously. And that's what makes a series interesting. It's not like the regular season. You play one team, and you play them, you play them once in July and then once in August. It's, you see this team day in, day out, 7 times or however long the series goes. You make adjustments on the fly. There's too much analytics. People are just too smart in this business to not get beat the same way twice. If you do, you most likely don't have a job, and you're most likely not playing in the finals. Eric Spoelstra and Frank Vogel are both terrific coaches. You have two terrific teams, and you just don't know what you're going to get game to game. But you're not going to see the same. You're not going to see the same thing twice, and that's kind of what the beauty of the NBA is. You just don't know which way a game is going to go on any given night, and that's kind of the beauty of sports, and that's why there's really an unpredictability factor when you're looking at this series. Are the Lakers probably going to win this because of their skill, their size, and kind of other factors, including injuries? Yes, but we know Miami plays a lot of heart, and we know that they're not going to make it easy for him because we know what this team is all about. We know Jimmy Butler has that belief that he can win, and he's surrounded by a lot of guys that also believe that they can win this series. So that's what's going to make the rest of the series interesting, hopefully. And if Miami can win a game 4, then we start really talking. But if the Lakers win game 4, then we're really looking at a close series because the Lakers are probably going to win in 5 if the Lakers win the next one.
Also, keep in mind though, like because Bam and Dragic, they're rumored to come back for Game 3, so there's a chance they might be healthy, but they decided to take the extra game off because it was an elimination game.
Yeah, but
Thought maybe take the extra day off to fully recover. So when you do come back, you won't end up with Kevin Durant did last season where he gets a worse injury. So there's a chance that
even if the Lakers are still going to be favorites, look, Jimmy Butler played out of
they'll
his
be
mind.
favorites, but it will be closer. It will be definitely harder.
Like he had the game of his life. You're probably not going to repeat it to that level. And it's not like Miami blew them out. The Lakers are still close. It's not like Miami kind of pulled away from that game. They look like a completely different team. The Lakers are still hanging around because Miami had that extra motivation not to go down 3-0. And like they found a way to win. Credit Miami because good teams find ways to win. But are we likely going to consistently see Jimmy Butler play like that? No.
No, but it'll come down to whether or not he has Bam and Dragic back.
Yeah. It's going to be a good series. We will see what happens in Game 4. It's going to determine a lot of how the rest of the finals may play out. So tune into Game 4 as the NBA season comes to a conclusion. And by next week, we will not have any NBA basketball for a long time. So if you're an NBA fan, enjoy the last few games this season because it really has been a strange season, but it's been a lot of fun. And hopefully we have a really competitive series to finish it off because I think this season kind of deserves a close ending. We will see what happens in the NBA, but we will move on to the NFL where the season is just getting started and a lot has been happening across the league. There's a lot of different storylines to follow. There's a lot of places we start, but I think we'll start with the Kansas City New England game. No Cam Newton as he picked up the COVID-19 virus. Jared Stidham and Brian Hoyer couldn't replicate what Cam Newton's on offense for the New England Patriots, but it was a good defensive battle till the end. Dario, we'll start with you as a New England fan. What did you see? What did you like? What could maybe you guys improve on for the upcoming weeks?
You know what? I really, really do wish that this game had been postponed, if I'm honest with you. At least for so Cam could have been back. And that simply was the issue with this in this game. Simple as if Cam Newton's in this game, it's a completely different it is a different game. I thought just generally defensively, that was one of the positives. I think we were very good defensively throughout. And we got a good kudos to that. In terms offensively, though, the display out there was embarrassing, especially in that first half. Hoyer, look, I want to respect, like he's a third string or second string for us. I just don't understand the decision to play him in this game. I really do think Stidham should have started. That being said, you can't blame really. You can blame him, but you can also blame like the general performance itself wasn't great. Edelman made some mistakes, especially literally handing the ball to Kansas City player to go to score a touchdown. It was kind of a day to forget, really, or a night to forget for all Patriot fans. But you know what? Like, hopefully Cam Newton will be back for Denver in the next week. And you know what? Kansas City are just showing how good of a team they really are. They're just being the top teams week in, week out. We saw last week with Baltimore. Now they're beating the Patriots this week. and they keep continuing this run of form for them. So it's unfortunate, but I mean, I bet a lot of Kansas City fans are happy with this, of course. As a Patriot fan, we just have to keep moving forward, hope everything gets better this next week, and honestly just move on from this result. It happened. Mistakes were made, decisions were made, and yeah, I'm hoping that things get better in this next coming week against Denver.
Yeah, I think a lot of it came down to the fact that you guys really had Brian Hoyer playing that game, and like because without Cam Newton, your offense isn't going to be like what it was like a week before. I honestly though, all credit to your defense for not allowing Mahomes to throw deep bombs and to like completely like run over you guys. Because I mean, I was hoping that the Ravens would do that to Mahomes like last week, and they didn't. So honestly, credit to the Patriots defense and like Belichick's coaching. But yeah, that shows like how much like I think work still needs to be done on the Patriots offense. Like you have Cam Newton, and because Cam Newton has a talent, it's like you guys it's enough for you guys to win games. And when he's back, like you guys will continuously should be fine. But like, I think it's caused concern that maybe if Stem played the whole game, it would be different, maybe. But like the fact that Brian Hoyer was playing and he really isn't that. I don't know how to word it, but he isn't really a great player in any means.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, he's an aging player. He's been on multiple teams throughout the years. But you know what? It's unfortunate. Honestly, Brian Hoyer is just not simply a great player anymore. He was always a second, third string throughout the years. And I guess to be honest, this was just a game that kind of showed what it would have been like if we didn't get Cam Newton in the offseason. It's it's a little bit of a worrying sign, but to be honest with you, I think as long as we sign him up to next year, and we'll see how this season goes, obviously. But it really just showed the depth in our quarterback position and also our receiving, our offense in general. It says a lot of how some of the weaknesses that we do have, especially when we don't have a person like Cam Newton there to put the attention the other way, if that makes sense.
I mean, that game's kind of an anomaly, simply because the Chiefs' offense didn't look like the same Chiefs' offense that we've seen. And also without Cam Newton, it's kind of unfair to judge New England because, most teams would struggle with a backup QB. What I will say about that game specifically, what cost the Patriots, costly turnovers. They had that one turnover when they were driving in the third quarter. They're inside the 10-yard line, and Brian Hoyer gets sacked. That gives the ball, and that's kind of like that momentum change. But also the reffing. That's probably the worst ref game we've seen so far early on in the season. And it sucks that it was kind of a primetime game that, maybe in the long run won't matter too much because New England will likely be a wild card team, and the Chiefs, are likely going to win their division. So I don't think this game played too much of a factor in the whole of the entire season. Maybe unless the Patriots miss out by one game of the playoffs, then we'll maybe look at this. But even if they get the calls, I don't think the result changes that much. The Chiefs have a good defense. That's what I'll say about the Chiefs. They have an underrated defense. We like to talk about Mahomes because of his greatness, and every time he steps onto the field, he does something special. But, I mean, it was a good game to watch because New England kept them in it. New England has a great defense, and I think that speaks volumes about Bill Belichick. He has no right to be playing this well with the team that he has. With all due respect, outside of Julian Edelman and Cam Newton, who didn't play, he has no weapons on offense. And they're competitive. Every game, New England can win. And it speaks volumes of how having a great coach can affect the team. Having the greatest coach of all time will definitely make a difference for results in the NFL. So just credit to Bill Belichick because what we saw defensively, he did something that no other team's really been able to, and stop Patrick Mahomes to kind of limit them from really hurting them. You're going to give up points to Patrick Mahomes, but the way that they, in the first half especially, not giving up one touchdown the entire half, you may not see that again. from a team in the NFL playing the Kansas City Chiefs. But I mean, outside of that game, it was a good game to watch. You know, it was kind of old school defensive battle. But yeah, the Chiefs held on. They're the Super Bowl favorites, so New England Patriots should actually hold their heads up high because without Cam Newton, with COVID, the game being moved back, I really didn't think New England would keep it that close. So credit to them. But at the end of the day, Kansas City did get the job done, which we all expected. Go to the other Monday night game where the Green Bay Packers beat the Atlanta Falcons. We like to talk about Green Bay and how they always underperform with Aaron Rodgers, but this team has looked really good through 4 weeks. Can they maybe be a Super Bowl contender this year? Because we've seen a lot of improvement, I think, offensively and defensively early on.
I say yes, because especially if when Devontae Adams comes back. Remember, Aaron Rodgers is playing like this even without his number one receiver. So have given his number one receiver, just think about how the changes everything. And the defense has been like better than it has been in recent years because they completely shut down the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons, they're not a great team, but they're the one good team
They're good on
about
offense.
them. They're good on offense.
They have
Yeah.
a good offense.
They have a terrible defense, but their offense is good. That's the offense that should score. But Green Bay stopped them from doing that. Like Calvin Ridley, he got over 100 yards for like the first 3 weeks, and then this game he got no receptions. And like after he got like 5 targets and he got nothing. So that kind of shows like they can stop offensive threats, and they are an offensive threat in their own right. And that's why I think they do have a shot at going back to Super Bowl finally. Aaron Rodgers has a chance of finally going back to Super Bowl.
Quickly with Green Bay's defense, what I really like outside of kind of Za'Darius Smith, their linebackers, or secondary. I think they have a really good secondary with Darnell Savage, Adrian Amos.
Yeah.
You can look at Kevin King at a cornerback. I do like their secondary. I think their secondary is one of the better ones from what I've seen early on. I think they're covering the middle of the field and the kind of the deep ball really well. They're not getting beat by big plays, which is kind of what Green Bay's being guilty of doing over the last kind of couple of years in big moments. Again, it is early on, but just again, what I've seen from Green Bay early on is encouraging. And drafting Jordan Love almost put like a negative spin on the offseason. We really didn't know if Aaron Rodgers was going to stay, if he was going to be happy to stay. But it seems like there are enough weapons on this team. Aaron Jones is a top 3 running back in the league, or at least top 5. Definitely just based on consistency and overall performance of the last few years. Again, Devontae Adams isn't healthy right now, but Aaron Rodgers, his passing ability is second to none. He'll always find the open guy. So as long as you're designing the right plays for him, as long as you're designing plays to make sure that guys are getting open, Aaron Rodgers will usually find the guy. So hopefully for Green Bay's sake, they keep it going because they're an easy team to root for. They're fun to watch with Aaron Rodgers. He plays with that kind of swagger. Good win for them again in week 4. They're now 4-0, and they look like a team that can't be beat right now. So credit to them. They keep going.
Atari, you want to ask something?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say how awesome is it to see the Bears and the Packers in that rivalry in the NFC North again. It's quite great to see. Just as a neutral in itself. And generally, though, I agree with both of you. I think the secondary for Green Bay is great. I think Aaron Rodgers is finding a new weapon in Robert Tonyan, I believe it is, or I might be getting.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Aaron Jones is performing well too. And Green Bay do look a little bit scary. I'm wondering to see how they go. I believe they have a bye week coming up next, but after the bye week, seeing how they perform, especially when they have to play the Bears very soon. They look quite exciting as a team, and hopefully let's see how they do.
Speaking of the Bears, now they have Nick Foles instead of Mitch Trubisky. How much of a boost should that be going forward? And are the Bears a legitimate threat in the NFC?
That will make, in my opinion, that doesn't make a huge difference. I think Foles is an upgrade from Trubisky, but to be honest, anything is an upgrade from Trubisky. I think Bears, they aren't like you said, like the rivalry between Packers and the Bears are like rejuvenated because the Bears aren't that joke of a franchise they were for like recent years. They still have a good defense, and I think like they are as much a threat with Trubisky as they were with Foles in terms of overall, because it's not the quarterback that makes them a threat. And they have a good receiving core, and maybe the only thing I could say that Foles really brings up beyond Trubisky would be maybe his better chemistry with Allen Robinson, because you've seen Allen Robinson's performance kind of boost in the recent games when Foles was playing. So maybe small factors like that will boost like Foles as a quarterback. But in terms of a talent level, I don't think Foles is that huge of a upgrade himself over Trubisky.
Indy's strange. I think their defense definitely improved. I think they have been one of the better defensive teams, or definitely been one of the better defensive teams early on. It's strange that they lost in Jacksonville because they really shouldn't have lost to the Jaguars week 1. They maybe had a favorable schedule when you look at it. Vikings week 2, Jets week 3. The Jets. We don't really have to talk about why why that's not a very impressive win. And then the Bears. Nick Foles, look, I mean, he has a Super Bowl with the Eagles, but I don't see Nick Foles being the answer for Chicago. And they do have a great defense. That's really why they made the playoffs with Mitch Trubisky 3 years ago. They really had no right to make the playoffs when you have a QB as bad as Mitch Trubisky. You might as well make the playoffs with Dwayne Haskins in Washington. It's just his fall has really been incredible, and the fact that they took Trubisky before Patrick Mahomes will always be one of the biggest regrets probably in sports history. That's what's going to come down to. Patrick Mahomes is clearly that much better than Mitch. But yeah, Chicago will be interesting. They're 3-1. Good defense, average offense, good coaching. Do I see them as a threat though? No. Will they be competitive most weeks? Yes, but that's really all you can say about Chicago. They don't excite me. Nothing really kind of. When you look at Chicago, you don't really kind of get excited to watch their game. Allen Robinson's a terrific receiver, but it's just you want to kind of early on identify teams that kind of you could think maybe threaten for a Super Bowl. It could maybe threaten to make a deep playoff run. When I watch Chicago, I'm uninspired by their offense, and the NFL is really transitioning to an offensive game with the way that points are being scored. So that's my biggest issue with Chicago. Will they keep their offense in their games because of their defense? Yes, but will they? When it comes down to it, will they most likely make a deep playoff run? For sure not. Let's move on to the Cleveland Browns versus the Dallas Cowboys. This will be a big one because the Dallas Cowboys are now 1-3, mostly behind their defense because their defense is one of the worst in the league. They give up points left, right, and center. The Cleveland Browns put up 49 points. I'll let you guys start before I do my classic rant on the Dallas Cowboys. What do you make of this team? What are you seeing when you watch them?
No, I have a lot to say on this actually, and y'all let me finish on this. Because honestly, Dario, I think you'll agree with me. Evan, I think you'll agree with parts of what I say, at least. But I want to start by saying I respect Dak Prescott as a quarterback. The talent he has as a quarterback, I have absolute complete respect for him. To play the way he does, and like honestly, yeah, he's proven time and time again like how good of a quarterback he is and how talented that offense is really. That being said, the Dallas Cowboys are currently the biggest joke in the NFL right now. Look at what you've been doing for the last 20 years. Like you guys got 3 or 4 playoff wins, and then like you guys complain. If fans complain, oh, get rid of Jason Garrett. We need to get rid of Jason Garrett. Fire Jason Garrett. And okay, you guys fired Jason Garrett. How are you guys doing now? You guys are 1-3, and you guys got scored off 49 points by the Cleveland Browns. There's 3 times this season. You guys, and 2 times they're pretty big in particular. You guys had completely getting destroyed the first half, and then your offense has to bring you back. But how is any defense that bad to get scored on 41 points by Cleveland Browns? And okay, Cleveland Browns, not the joke of the team they were a few years ago, but they still, you shouldn't be getting scored on the first half 41 points by any team, really. The Dallas Cowboys, man, like, I don't blame Dak Prescott for asking for a lot of money because if I was Prescott and I was that talented quarterback, I would want all that money for psychological damage that the Cowboys do. Mike McCarthy is not the answer to the Cowboys. I think you could agree with me on that completely. Like, McCarthy wasn't the answer. You guys need to bring a new coach, like a fresh mindset that could really like rejuvenate the franchise, and McCarthy wasn't that coach. And you've made every offense look like a superstar offense. And like again, you guys did face good offensive teams so far. I'll give you that. Like the Rams, Falcons, Seahawks, and like even Cleveland has like a fair offense, but like you guys can't expect to ever like win with like blowing the lead that early on and expecting like Prescott to try to come close to bail you out. Prescott's the only reason the whole offense. Prescott has weapons. Ezekiel Elliott is talented. You guys have talented offenses. That's the reason why you guys are seem to come close at the end. But you guys are only won one game against the Falcons, which honestly isn't saying much because the Falcons are absolute garbage right now, especially their defense. It's made one of the defense worse than Cowboys. So like there's really nothing more to say like Cowboys other than
The Cowboys have a great offense and a shit defense. That's what the bottom line is. There's only two guys that can even hold their head up high with any pride. That defense. One is Alden Smith, who hasn't played football in 2 years, and Trayvon Diggs. He's been a rookie. He's been thrown into the fire. He's made a few mistakes early on, but over the last 2 weeks, I've seen a massive improvement from him. And I think the Cowboys did a good job drafting him because I think Trayvon Diggs is a very good player. I mean, yeah, the rest of the defense just sucks. I mean, they're getting beat the same ways over and over again, and they've played 3 bad teams and 4 bad defenses. The only good team they've played is Seattle. But Seattle's a horrible defense. So Dak Prescott could throw for 450 yards all he wants. The reality is he has a great offense, and they're playing crap defenses. That's not a dig on Dak Prescott because he has done what he's had to do, but a lot of his passing yards have come because the Cowboys have consistently in every single game they've had to play from behind. Mike Nolan should just get fired today because honestly I don't know what the point of keeping him is. Just you're not getting results, so I don't know what if you fire me and get worse. If I'm the Cowboys, just fire Mike Nolan. Jerry Jones is just sucking the life out of this team. Jerry Jones is just so far past it. He seems like he doesn't have a clue. He goes to every game, but I mean, if you go to every game, even if you watch every game, as the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, you should realize there's a goddamn problem, and you can't stop anybody. You shouldn't be giving the Cleveland Browns 49 points. You should be 0-4 if you don't recover an onside kick. And look, the reality is you'll still make the playoffs because the rest of the division is just that bad too. I don't even want to like the Cowboys because we know what they are. Mike McCarthy, he's an offensive mind, but I don't know if he's calling the plays or if Kellen Moore is calling the plays. And Kellen Moore has a good rep for most people. Their offenses look good so far, but again, they've played horrible defenses. There's not one defense, maybe except for the Rams, who gave up the least amount of points to the Cowboys. That you can possibly say is a respectable defense. Atlanta's not good. Seattle's has a horrible defense, and so does Cleveland. You score all the points he wants, but the reality is Dak Prescott, he could throw for 500 yards. But you're playing from behind. You have to throw for that many yards, and he's doing what he has to do. Cowboys offense excites me. I like CeeDee Lamb. I like Amari Cooper. I like Zeke. I like Michael Gallup. You have all the talents in the world, but you're sitting here at 1-3, and we know why. Because you can't stop a goddamn offense, and that's the reality. And I'm sick and tired of kind of seeing the same thing over and over again. Jason Garrett was obviously the problem. Was he a problem? Obviously, he was a horrible head coach. But the problem is Jerry Jones kept him for 10 years. Jerry Jones is still here. He's not gonna leave until the day he dies. He loves the team too much, but frankly, he's killing the team that we all love. So that's where I'll leave it because it's the same story with the Cowboys. Good offense, shit defense, and a delusional owner that thinks that they're still a Super Bowl contender. They're not. No one from the NFC East is, but.
You know what it is, though? Like, I don't know if you guys saw this parallel. Maybe you guys will agree. But I'm watching this Dallas Cowboys game the other day against Cleveland, and they are really reminding me of the Green Bay Packers, and that could be because of the coach Mike McCarthy, obviously. But in the last 4 seasons, where you have a weapon, such it could be you can have like a quarterback like Dak Prescott. For them was Aaron Rodgers. Then having receivers like Devontae Adams, and then you have Amari Cooper for Dallas. And then they have a great running back as an Aaron Jones and then Ezekiel Elliott. You see where the patterns are, but one of the biggest things that are like common in both teams was the fact defensively they were not good enough. And Aaron Rodgers, and we know Green Bay Packers in the last few years were fantastic because of their offense, but defensively that was the reason why they didn't make the Super Bowl. They made mistakes in the regular season, and it showed, and they weren't a playoff team. This is the thing about Dallas I'm seeing that's almost completely the same. They have the offensive talent. There's no doubt. All of us can agree on that. Defensively, though, they are a mess, and Mike McCarthy was not gonna fix that. Look, there are other things, other factors. You kind of mentioned it all, Evan, so I won't reiterate that. But what I will say is that there are signs very similar to that Green Bay Packers team in the last few years.
The problem is Jerry Jones' ego is just that big. And he need a yes man. Mike McCarthy will be the guy that's like, yes, Jerry. You know, Jerry will control the media. Mike will do the football. But it was just such an uninspiring hire. Like we saw it with Tom Landry 30 years ago. Great head coach, but it just Tom Landry challenged him too much. And Jerry Jones was like, we'll move on. He's had good coach, Tom Landry, Jimmy Johnson, all great head coaches. Had success with the Cowboys, but Jerry Jones' ego got too big. He wants all the control, and in this day and age, just killing the Cowboys. And probably until the day he dies, or until Jerry Jones learns to give up a lot of that control, this team isn't going anywhere. So I just have to sit here every year, be pissed off watching just the pathetic effort, really. And just the results that I know are consistently coming. And my expectations never change. It's the only thing that changes for me is the hope. But my expectations never change with the Dallas Cowboys team. I always expect them to underachieve. There's some, maybe delusional Cowboys fans that down in Arlington that believe that this team has a shot. But it's the same pattern we saw with Garrett. The fact is that Jason Garrett was a horrible coach, but he was there for 10 years. And why was he there? Because Jerry Jones liked the guy that he could control. Same thing with Mike McCarthy. I don't know what's going to happen in the near future with this team, but just looking down the road, maybe 5 years, I don't see any hope for this Dallas Cowboys team, and that's what frustrates me the most. Speaking of horrible coaches and leadership, Bill O'Brien no longer has a job. And Houston fans must be absolutely ecstatic right now because he's been tearing that team apart for the last 10, 12 years. One of the most talented squads that never seems to be able to get anything done when it matters the most. There's a tweet I saw that I saved on Monday before I got fired. And then just so happened he got fired a few hours later. I'm just going to read this out. The Houston Texans are spending $255 million in cash on their roster this season, more than any other team in the NFL. They owe their first and second round picks in 2021 to the Dolphins, and they are currently 0-4. What I will say about the Houston Texans and about Bill O'Brien, sometimes, you could blame a GM for maybe not putting a team together that's that talented or, has holes maybe in one area that's kind of preventing you to win. A head coach's job is to make the team better, something Bill O'Brien never did. But the most ironic part about Bill O'Brien is not only was he the head coach, he was also the general manager of that team. He has put that team in such a hole. He has screwed that team basically for the next 5 years, at least. And the fact that he had a job for this long is shocking. So I'll before I move on to the Premier League, I'll let you guys give your opinions on Bill O'Brien and his tenure down in Houston.
Well, I think you said it all. It's not surprising that he got fired. It's surprising that he had a job this long.
Yep.
And I mean, as general manager, that I think the biggest standout is that DeAndre Hopkins trade. Like, you have a talented quarterback in Deshaun Watson,
Like
talented
how do
young
you
QB,
how do you
and
give
why
all
would you
this?
trade away his best weapon for
The
a
crazy
running back
thing,
who isn't what he used to be?
how do you get? You also give a second round pick for that. It's just, Bill O'Brien.
There's no logic to any decision he
He
really
has to be the
made.
biggest donkey in the NFL.
I completely agree on.
It
Like,
seems like he has no brain sometimes, and just the fact that he was allowed to control that team for that long.
and like you said, because he messed up the team, even with a new coach, they aren't going to like win anytime soon. Because
Like, why are they the highest paid roster in the NFL? Because Bill O'Brien's giving out just the dumbest contracts.
Yeah.
You could go up and down that roster. We don't even have to. You don't even have to because we know that Bill O'Brien sucked the life out of that team.
Yeah.
But oh, he's fired. It's almost surprising that he got fired because it seemed like he had something on the Texans ownership that allowed him to keep the job for that long. It's the only thing I could possibly think of.
Yeah, but I think Texas fans they should be happy he's gone. But
They're
at the end
dancing
of
in
the
the
day,
streets right now.
at the end of the day, though, they're still in trouble because he just had that much of a damage on that team.
Yeah, they're in trouble for the long term, but at least he's fired now, and
Yeah.
they could finally move on and get some closure from that dude. Because not too much to say. Dyer, any final thoughts on Sir Bill O'Brien?
No, just to be honest, to reiterate what you guys said. Honestly, it was he's kind of screwed Houston up for the next few years. But you know what? It's good that they got rid of him now, and hopefully they can they can somewhat rebuild from this. And it's funny because this came very early on in the season, probably for the best that they do it. But we'll just have to see where Houston go with this.
It's been a crazy NFL week. A lot has happened. We'll continue to discuss the season as it rolls on. A lot of good football still have to be played. A lot of storylines to follow, and we'll see what happens next week. We will recap again the week on Spirit Live, so tune into that. But we will move on to the Premier League, where we saw one of the craziest weeks, I think, that we will ever see.
God.
If there's a week that surprises us more in any match week throughout the season, I would be surprised. Where should we start? You know what? Let's start with Liverpool. The defending champions losing to Aston Villa, who just survived last year. But Aston Villa beat them 7-2. Where do you even start with that? How do you begin to break down that result?
You know, I'm kind of glad that was the final game after the United performance. That was great. That was kind of therapeutic in a way. But where to start? Honestly, I remember I was watching a bit of the first half, and I was seeing the way Liverpool were playing, and it didn't feel right. Even when they were it was 2-1 down, I was like, okay, they're probably going to come back in this game. It's not a professional performance, but they'll probably come into this. Then they became 3-1. Then became 4-1, 5-1. And I don't know what defensively was going on with Liverpool. I mean, we've seen it in a few games this season against Leeds. But I don't know. They were just like a mess all in all. And you can't – this kind of showed for the first time that when you don't have Mane, when you don't have a top player playing to their very best. And look, I love Salah. I think he's a great player. But you could see that they were missing someone like Mane, and there were definitely some holes in this Liverpool team, which I don't think we haven't seen in at least a year and a half. You know what, though? You have to give all the credit to Aston Villa. They played an outstanding game. Ollie Watkins with 3 goals on his debut, I believe it was. And Jack Grealish showing why he's one of the best. He was just outstanding. Like, seriously, I'm surprised he's still here, not at at a bigger club right now. But you know what? This is a humbling for them. And I guess it's coming from a United fan, so we've kind of had that too. But They really this I feel like this was coming. And you know what? It comes at the perfect time for Liverpool in a way because it's the international break and they can come back from this. But you know what? To see a champion, I believe there was a stat that no champion has lost by this amount of a margin in a Premier League season, like the year after they won it as reigning champions, which was quite bizarre. Yeah, but it was just a disaster through and through for Liverpool.
What I will say about Liverpool, a lot of the goals are deflections, which kind of you really don't see. Liverpool were a bit unlucky in some of the ways they conceded. A few of those goals, Adrian for the first made just a bad error. But defensively, that team was a shadow of themselves. And as a Chelsea fan, I will get my one dig at Liverpool, and I'll give my one praise to a former Chelsea player. Assistant coach at Aston Villa right now, John Terry. If anyone ever wants to compare John Terry and Virgil van Dijk again, they really shouldn't, because in 2004, John Terry, Cavallo, and the rest of that defense gave up 15 goals in a season. Virgil van Dijk and his defense gave up half of that in a game. To me, John Terry is the greatest Premier League defender of all time. That was my little side note for that. But yeah, it just didn't look like Liverpool. It was just disorganized. The attitude just seemed there. The heads dropped early on after the first few goals went in. It didn't seem like they had the belief that they're going to come back. And Aston Villa just took over. A lot of people are praising Leeds. I feel like almost more people praised Leeds for losing to Liverpool than people are praising Aston Villa for beating them. A lot of people are saying, well, Liverpool made mistakes. It's uncharacteristic. Look, Aston Villa earned every single ounce of that win. You don't beat Liverpool 7-2 because you got lucky. That team played incredibly well, and it seems like they've figured out their defensive woes from last year, which almost sent them back into the championship. So credit to Aston Villa. This team looks like a threat. Adding, I think, Ross Barkley was big because he'll give them that creative presence in midfield with Jack Grealish. It's just another option for Aston Villa. Matty Cash, a fullback, I think is necessary because they're struggling a lot on the back end. So I think Aston Villa's invested in the right places. They invested a lot of money the previous year, but it was clearly in the wrong places. So it seems like they've gone that right balance, and it seems like they should have enough to stay up, especially that they've managed to keep Jack Grealish. Quickly on Jack Grealish before we move on to Manchester United is I think that's who United should get next summer in January. I would simply replace Paul Pogba with Jack Grealish in the United midfield. A lot of people maybe will shake their head at that and say, what are you talking about? But at this point, Paul Pogba, we'll talk about him in a second, but he seems like he's just almost lost the motivation to play in the Premier League. He seems like a shadow of himself from his Juventus days or even early on in United. But Jack Grealish, what he offered, I think United, regardless of Paul Pogba, United should get Jack Grealish. He gives you another option offensively. I think his game would really suit that team. And whatever happens with United, I think Jack Grealish will definitely be a good option for the future. Will he cost a lot of money? Yeah, but from what I've seen from Jack Grealish throughout his career, from when he first came to Villa as a teenager to where he is now, he really is a terrific player. So credit to Aston Villa and Jack Grealish on demolishing the defending Premier League champions and really making this a wide open Premier League race. Move on to Manchester United, who got destroyed by Tottenham 6-1. Jose Mourinho getting a victory over his former club. I don't want to speak too much about Manchester United because I know you'll have a lot to say about them. But what I will say about them quickly is simply about the Spurs game is they gave way too much space to that team. Even with 11 men early on, defending wasn't there, and just the space that Tottenham had to operate it was shocking from a team that you expect a lot more from. We know this team has a lot of problems top to bottom. When you look at Woodward and the Glazers, obviously they are really hurting this team in the long term. And Matt Judge, the recruitment isn't there, but Daria, I'll let you take it away with Manchester United. And where do you go from here? Because it's looking very dark after that game.
You know what? I'm gonna talk about this City game, and I'm also gonna bring up like the transfer window, because seeing had it been Monday, it kind of goes hand in hand in a way. I have never seen more of a disgraceful performance from United in at least these last 7 years since Sir Alex left. That was embarrassing, and I sat in on my sofa watching the game, and I was honestly shocked at the performance. Now, look, I'm going to address this right now. I understand that there was a terrible call made by is it Anthony? Was it Anthony Taylor?
Yes.
Anthony Taylor.
The worst refereeing then. I mean,
I do not understand the call that was made on sending off Martial, and Lamela was very dirty there. Look, all due respect, I'm sorry. How did he stay on the pitch? Look, that is besides the point, though. That was a terrible call. But what the bottom line is that performance was embarrassing from top to bottom. Defensively, we were all over the place. Maguire taking out his Luke shot in that first goal. It was just a joke. I like 80 million spent on Maguire. I think 200 million in total in that black line, or maybe less, maybe a little less. I'm over exaggerating, but it was just shocking, like all around. And I heard this story. I don't know if you saw this on Twitter. But apparently when Bruno Fernandes decided to stay in the dressing room after the whole debacle in the first half, and apparently they got into a little bit of a fight. This is a rumor, by the way, it's not confirmed, but I did hear a lot of people talking about it.
I saw that too, yeah. How Bruno was kind of getting into Harry Maguire.
Yes, yeah. and he wanted to stay up. And to be honest with you, I actually completely understand why he did that, and I like that.
It's hard to blame Bruno, yeah.
And the worst part is, I think what I also heard is the fact that Maguire didn't even argue the call with the ref. He just stayed on the side with the whole Martial incident.
There's a picture where when Anthony Taylor's giving the ref, Harry Maguire, your club captain, like, how are you not at least talking to the referee? Like, as a captain has a certain responsibility. And Harry Maguire clearly should not be captain of that team.
No, absolutely not.
We all know that. So maybe it's a bit harsh to kind of criticize his captaining ability simply because he shouldn't be captain of that team. But that's the problem with United. I think outside of Bruno Fernandes, there's no one that I could say deserves to be and De Gea, but De Gea's a goalie, so it's hard to maybe say that. You usually don't give captaincy to goalies because, you need a captain that's kind of controlling everyone on the pitch. And David De Gea kind of has his role in that, but that's a different issue. Yeah. Harry Maguire, when Anthony Taylor was giving out the red cards, was standing 20 feet away from everyone else. It doesn't make sense.
Show some passion on the pitch. This is the thing that United have lacked, and it pisses me off throughout these years, is they lack the passion and the desire to sometimes win these games. This is a game that I don't think any United fan wanted to lose, especially to Mourinho. That was the worst part about this.
You never want to lose any game, but that's a game that you kind of pinpoint. Mourinho comes back. He had a terrible time. We want to kind of show Mourinho what we're about, and Mourinho said, "I'm just gonna let you guys self-capitulate, and I'm just gonna enjoy the show."
And you know what? I have to be honest. Credit to Tottenham. I have to be honest. They played a great game. They knew what they had a game plan, and they played some great stuff. I can't. You have to give credit to them. And United simply were not good enough. And Ole, I back him for as long as I can. But that performance and tactically, even when we were down to 10 men, the fact that he still kept going with a high press, the fact that he kept going at Tottenham and didn't change his game plan was worrying. And this is summed up by the entirety of what United's transfer window and everything that's been happening this summer. it's now that momentum we had back in June is gone. It's absolutely finished. And look, now I'm gonna go to the transfer window very quickly. The fact that yesterday we got Tellez and Cavani and then 2 youngsters, which look, I'm happy for the future.
Yeah.
The fact that you get an aging player like Cavani, and look, he was great 3 years ago. I would have said amazing. He isn't that he isn't like that anymore. He is a goal scorer. He was a goal scorer back then, but he's injury prone. He has multiple his fees for his contract were ridiculous for 2 years.
It was clearly a desperate sign to kind of to make United fans kind of figure out that you guys missed out on Sancho.
It was a panic buy.
That's what it felt like, yeah.
It was a panic buy, and look, I actually don't mind Tellez. I think that just, to be honest, the only complaint I have about that is that should have been done when Van der Beek came into the squad. So that's a fine signing. It just took way too long. And this has been a disastrous window for United. One of the worst in recent memory, not because we didn't make acquisitions. We did make the acquisitions we made are fine. It's just in the overall grand scheme of things, it's not going to amount to anything. Cavani will be gone after this year, or in 2 years. Tellez will be fine, but he's not proven. We don't know how he's going to be in the Premier League. And Van de Beek, fair enough, is a solid signing. I just don't understand what Ed Woodward and Matt just were thinking coming into the season. It's just an absolute joke all around. And forgive me, I don't really know where United's going to go from this. You know what? This just sums it up. When the transfer window was ending, I think you saw this too. There was rumors already that they were contacting about Pochettino. This may not be true. We don't know. This just I was seeing all over Twitter.
There's a lot of rumors that go on in soccer because there's so many journalists that kind of always looking to kind of create a story even if there isn't one there. But
yes.
Yeah, I'll lose in trouble because that result is a result that gets coaches fired. Obviously, they weren't going to get rid of him simply off that game because there's a lot of reasons they lost that game, and Ollie isn't in the top 5 of that. There's a few things I want to ask you about United where I want your opinion, just kind of certain points exactly where I kind of want to know where you stand on it with United. But just on the transfer window, let's just compare the window just simply to Chelsea because I think Chelsea had the best window in the Premier League. The difference is they got their business done early. Frank Lampard and Roman Abramovich and Marina, they identified the problems from last year, and they only strengthened. They got guys that they know will be starters if they're healthy. When you look at Kai Havertz, a generational talent, we've seen early glimpses of kind of what he can do. But that was someone that Frank Lampard wanted, someone that Lampard can probably help develop because they played similar positions in their careers. And Kai Havertz probably knows that Frank Lampard could really only help him develop as a player. But when you look at Ziyech, they needed to replace Willian and Pedro, and they needed to start starting winger. In comes Ziyech. Creative, we know what he can do. And that's a player that we're excited to see because we've seen his capabilities. We know what he can bring. Timo Werner, they need a number 1 striker. Tammy Abraham, he's shown signs of what he can do last year, but he also showed his weaknesses. And if you want to challenge for top 4 in the Premier League, that was an area Frank Lampard said we need to address. Goes out and buys Timo Werner. Ben Chilwell, Alonso and Emerson aren't good enough. In comes Ben Chilwell. Goal and assist in his debut. Played really well, but that was the area of weakness that Chelsea needed to improve. There you go. Goalie, they bring in Edouard Mendy. Kepa clearly didn't get the job done last year. One of the worst goalies statistically and visually last year. In comes a new goalie. Thiago Silva needs some veteran leadership. They identified early that they need that. We'll get him on a free. In comes Thiago Silva. And already their defense looks better than last year simply because they added a piece that they needed to add. So that's just the difference between Chelsea United. They got backing from the owner, and they identified places in the squad they needed to improve, and they did it. United needed another winger to replace Dan James or to even start ahead of Mason Greenwood, to allow Mason Greenwood to develop and learn. And if someone gets injured, for competition. You play 50 games a year. You need depth. So is Dan James going to get it done? Or could United have gone Jadon Sancho? That's the difference. United obviously have the money. The Glazers just want to pocket whatever they get and then make excuses later on. They have no ambition. But speaking on United, I want to know some key points from you. Harry Maguire, he's clearly not a number one center back, but do you have faith to pair him with someone else and challenge for trophies? Can Harry Maguire be a second center back?
Look, the thing is I don't actually think Maguire. Look, he's not a world-class center back. He isn't. He is a Premier League proven center back. Okay, he hasn't been showing it recently, but that we can't disregard it how he played. He wasn't bad last season. He had its odd games near the tail end, which were terrible. But is he going to win his trophies? To me, no. I simply think he is a squad player. He is a starting center back in some games, not in the big games, in my opinion, because it's obviously being shown. Every time he's played Tottenham, he's been awful. Just generally in the big games in total, he has not been great. But to me, no. I think you need a center back. And to be honest, that was kind of a shock how United haven't even thought about that throughout this transfer window. I get he's worth 80 mil, but regardless, you're getting rid of Chris Smalling. You only have Bailly and Lindelof as your center back pairings. And to be honest with you,
play 6 games a year.
Yeah, literally, he could be injured. I wouldn't be surprised if he come back from the international break and he's injured already. Honestly, it's kind of normal now. Of course, you got Phil Jones, but let's be honest, Phil Jones is not going to be a starting center back for United at this point. And Lindelof has had a poor showing as well. This is a bad time in terms of center backs. I'm very worried. And even Tellez is going to be great for as a left back with Shaw. I think it's going to be a decent pairing there. And same thing with Bissaka. I think that's going to be kind of cool to see. And I believe Williams will be switching to the right. So I'm not worried about the fullbacks. I think that's going to be okay. We'll be fine there. Center back pairing is going to be an issue, and it's because we haven't addressed it. So simple as, I don't think so, no. I don't think Maguire will win us trophies. I don't think he'll be the player that, like Rio Ferdinand, he won't be like that. I'm hoping that I'm wrong on this, but I really don't see it.
Well, no. I mean, it's like me saying I hope Kepa turns into Manuel Neuer. They bought him for a world record fee for a goalie at the time, just like Harry Maguire is a world record fee for a defenseman. But no, they're clearly not they're not going to give you back the value that you paid for them. I don't want to speak too much about Maguire. I want to ask you about Paul Pogba, because there's been a lot of controversy throughout his United career, but I think now more than ever, the rumors are really starting to go about his future. What I'll say about him early on, it looks like the effort really isn't there. He's been a lot of passes he's just misplacing. He's getting dispossessed off the ball a lot. Something that shouldn't be happening for a guy that costs 90 million. I think there's a lot of factors why he's struggling. He's not playing in his best position, definitely. But if you're running United and you see Paul Pogba in this current situation, what do you do with Paul Pogba?
Listen, I've always been one to defend him, and I really do think there's an agenda of either it's rival fans or it's more of the people like the pundits on Pogba. I do generally believe there is one on him. That being said, it's inexcusable what his performance has been like. And to be honest, I've been one of his critics. I'm one of those that are trying to be optimistic with him, but also have to see the flaws in a player like him. It's simple that he's in a position he shouldn't be playing, in my opinion. He does not complement well with Matic, and I wish I was wrong on that, but it's the case. It's showing. United fans have to understand that he is not performing to the rate that we want from a world-class player. And we know he's a World Cup winner. He can be world-class on his day. The problem is his consistency is lacking. I think the only season I've actually seen him play well was in that season with Mourinho when he finished second. That was simply the only time, and he had a lot of tools to work with in that season. Bottom line is this, though. In terms of his long-term, I really do think that I think this is a run of form. The rumors there have always been there, okay? Yeah. He hasn't signed his contract yet. That's always going to be there till he signs that contract. So I'm especially when he has a bad performance, I'm not worried about that. What I am worried about that is if he should, I feel like Ole needs to manage him really well in this next few weeks after international break. Simple as, you shouldn't be starting the next game against Newcastle. He should not be. They should have Scott McTominay and Fred did a fine job when they came on, even though I understand the game was already lost, but they didn't. They had to patch up some holes, and they did in some respects. They did that. That being said, they should be starting instead. And I know that sounds terrible, and you should be going with the player on paper that's the best player. But simple as Pogba is not playing at his
on
best.
Paper. Yeah.
It isn't, and that's something United have been doing for the last 7 years. They've always based their performances, based everything on paper. I was looking at the United just before the Tottenham game. I was looking at that starting 11, and there's not a single United fan that was complaining about having Bailly and Maguire, having Pogba and Matic, having Greenwood, Martial, Rashford.
Based on that, I'm always on Twitter during soccer games. United fans. Most of them believe that was their best 11 that they fielded, and I agree with them. I think on paper that was their best 11, and I think that speaks volumes.
It does.
It really does.
And look how the performance turned out. Look how it just shows you can't base everything on paper, on stats. It's one of those you gotta watch in the game. There are some players in this team, like for example Matic in the last few weeks, that has been a little bit underrated. He had a terrible game against Tottenham Fair, but that nobody really talks about because he does all the dirty work. He does all. Same with Scott McTominay, same with Fred. They're kind of those players which are more underrated. My point being, though, simple as is United have in the past few years have been going for players just for the headline name. Cavani is a headline name 3 years ago, maybe even now. I mean, I'm hoping he's gonna be great. Same with Tellez. They're kind of the signings that you would see on paper. It's like, oh, that's awesome. But bottom line is, playing in this team and with these tactics at the moment, I just don't understand where the direction is right now with United. There's so much turmoil within the club, both from the fan base, from the management. It's come to a point where I'm honestly sick of it, and I really don't want to get my hopes up anymore when United are in form. Because it's really getting to a point where I'm just getting fed up and getting annoyed. And we're going to be, what's going to happen is Ole's going to have a run he's going to probably have a run of bad fixtures coming up. And then what's going to happen is he's going to get fired. And then we're going to go with Pochettino, and it's the same cycle going to go on and on again. Someone needs to put their foot down and decide what is right for the next few years. And simple as they have not been doing that recently. So, yeah, sorry, this is more my rant, to be honest. But
as a United fan, this is your platform because this is when I think United fans have the opportunity to kind of speak on what's going on. So that's why I'm really giving you these moments to kind of talk, because you've been following this club all your life. So at this point, you have every right to say what's going on. Finally, before we talk about the transfer window and before we make our end the transfer window predictions for the rest of the year, I just want to ask you about Ole. I think we know a lot about Ole, kind of what he brings to United, but just how long can he last with this team and just within these circumstances?
Personally, I don't think it'll be long. I wish I was wrong on that again. And it's not – I actually don't think it will be his fault, and I will not be saying Ole out. I will not be saying any of that nonsense because really it is not his fault in my opinion. He may be a problem, fine, maybe, but there's deeper things within this club. And personally, I could see it going as late as December. If results don't turn around soon, he will be gone, and it will be the cycle starting all over again. So honestly, I don't think it'll be long. It's really sad because I do really think there is potential there if you give him the chance. Like Arteta, like Lampard, if you give him the backing, there's a different story here. And it's simple as this. They haven't done that. And we're going to pay for it once again in another season. The Glazers are to blame. Ed Woodward's to blame. Ole is to blame. There's a lot of people to blame. And until we really put our foot down to decide what the next step is, we're not going to have that. And I have to just say, before we keep going, Patrice Evra is becoming such a class player, just a class person in general. The way he's been speaking about this club, and I wish he was our director of football. Really, he understands the game. He understands United as a football club and the passion that the fans have. That simply the management does not. I'm not saying Ollie doesn't, but in terms of Ed Woodward and the Glazers, they don't care. They really don't, and it's being shown. And yeah, I feel like it's only a matter of time for Ollie to be gone.
Quickly, regarding Ollie, tell me if I'm wrong. I think Ollie is a good man manager. I think he allows the players to be creative, and I think he kind of gives them the freedom that they want, especially those attacking players like Bruno, Rashford, Greenwood. I think they kind of have that freedom. But tell me if I'm wrong. I think he's very tactically naive. I think against bad teams, he can have all the control of the ball he wants. He can have all the possession, but he's not able to break them down. And I think I think United don't need a man manager. I think United need a guy. They need a harsh man manager. They need a guy that will come in and take control of that dressing room, because a lot of people compare Ollie with Mikel and Frank simply because they're both relatively young managers in the Premier League, and they're all managing the top clubs that are regarded as the top 6 clubs. Within the media and just with regards kind of how they're portrayed, it seems like Frank Lampard and Mikel Arteta get the respect that Ollie is not getting. It seems like they have a respect from players and journalists. For whatever reason it is, Ollie doesn't have that same kind of reputation within the media. People, can call him whatever he wants, but clearly Ollie isn't the biggest problem. But I think Ollie is naive in many ways, and he can, I think with the young squad, I feel like the players almost have too much control. And that's why Bruno Fernandes, we saw him yelling at Lindelof against Sevilla when he made his mistake, and now we saw with Maguire. There's something seriously wrong with the leadership, and I think they need a coach that will command the respect, and they need a coach that will actually lead this team.
That was Jose Mourinho.
Because Ollie's not a leader. Ollie just seems like the guy that's telling them what to do, but when things go wrong, they almost put their heads in the sand.
But do you see something? Do you see why I do agree that he's naive, but I'm going to disagree with you on this one part where this is no different to David Moyes, to Louis van Gaal, to Mourinho. Mm-hmm. It's the exact same thing. If you can go back and watch the performances, this was a common theme throughout. We were terrible against the smaller teams. We were awful. Like at least with all our performances are a tad better. Not recently, but in terms of, I'm talking generally, they couldn't break down smaller teams. Their record against the top sides were fine. I remember Mourinho's record against Chelsea was not too bad from United when they were playing each other. There was that, to me, says something. It's not about the naivety of being of Ollie, because we've seen that before. We've had players that Lukaku. We've had those players that some are even better back in the day than they are now. I'm talking like, look at Memphis Depay. I know he's in the French league, but he was one of Louis van Gaal's signings. And look how terrible he was. Awful in the Premier League. Let's be honest. He's rejuvenated his career in Lyon, but he was terrible here. The bottom line is it doesn't matter what manager you put into this team. I honestly believe that no matter where
recruitment for sure. Yeah, it seems like they're not recruiting the right guys to play in this team.
And and it doesn't matter which manager you put in, because I promise you something. You've put in Pochettino into the side, and no matter how good of a coach you put into the side, the same problems are going to lie. You're going to have teams coming into Old Trafford sitting back. You have teams out of way sitting back against the United team, going on the counter and scoring. And it's just going to be variations. Mourinho is a variation of a different side. Ole is a variation. But Louis van Gaal is a variation, a few tweaks and minor differences. But the bottom line is the same team. Same team as in same tactics, same ideas being put, and the philosophy of the football club is still – it still doesn't have one yet. It hasn't had one since Sir Alex left. I think Ole is in trouble, and he is going to continue to be in trouble for the next few weeks because he's going to get fired. And to be honest,
Yeah, they're
as I
gonna use
said
him as a
before,
scapegoat, really,
yeah, he's
as
giving
a
scapegoat.
scapegoat. Yeah.
Exactly. And Pochettino will start that cycle once more again. And it's really sad. It really is sad. So, yes, we are against the small side. Yes, we're not great. But it's nothing new. It's nothing new to any United fans. If you go back, it's the same. It's been the same thing. It's the same patterns, both transfer-wise and by results. It's been the exact same pattern.
All right. But before we end off this week's episode, we've now concluded the transfer window. We're 4 weeks in. Um, let's do our relegation picks and our picks for top six. Relegation, I think we both still have Fulham, West Brom as the two worst teams. But I had West Ham. I forget if you had West Ham at 18, but based on their performances, that may change. So I'll give you a chance. Who do you maybe see finishing in that 18th spot this year? Because I think West Brom and Fulham are pretty safe bets, but could be Burnley, Sheffield, or maybe a team that started off okay like Southampton, or Brian, and maybe one of those teams could fall into 18th later on. So who do you have in that relegation spots quickly?
As of now, I mean, look, I'm gonna be like in terms of the bottom three. I'm gonna go with Brighton and Burnley, Fulham. I do think that it's relatively
West Brom
close to West.
survive.
I do think so. I think they've just done enough in these last week or so. I remember even when we made the transfer, the predictions before, we said, okay, we want to see what West Brom do with these new signings, and it's been proven. I think West Brom will just survive, and I do think Brighton instead will be the side. Brighton are reminding me a lot of Norwich, where they simply do not have. They're performing well,
Brighton.
but they're not scoring the goals. Simple.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think Brighton do have enough talent to stay up. I think they'll be around 12, 13, 14. My relegation picks are just simply West Brom and Fulham, just because I think defensively they're not good enough, and I don't think they have enough goals in them. And then I picked Burnley to finish higher, but after watching them the first few weeks and me personally not liking Burnley, I'll pick them because simply I don't like the way they play, and I think the skill gap's gone a lot better from 10 to about 17. I think Burnley may be victims. It could be early on, but they may be victims of not strengthening enough and maybe at this point being figured out, because I don't think, free kicks and their size, and that's really what's kept them up, just really dominating aerially, getting goals from set pieces. I don't think that formula, I'm hoping that formula won't work because I don't like Burnley, just simply the way they play. I have to credit them because they have survived this long, but I think Burnley may be victims of a stronger Premier League season overall. Now, quickly, let's do our top six. So I think we'll have our opinions may change a little bit. How do we see the top six finishing? Where do you go?
Oh goodness. Look, I want to believe in Everton's amazing story at the moment. But I do think that that's a team that may fall off in the second half of the year. And look, it's a really bold prediction for me to say that right now because it's just ended. We're only like 4 games in. So right now I'm gonna say still Everton in 6th. I think they'll start well and then they'll kind of drift off later on in the year. And then in 5th, I'm going to put United right now. I'm going to put United in top because I really did genuinely think that – I could be pessimistic because of the result the other day. But to be honest with you, I don't know if we're going to make the top 4 with right now with the Champions League group stage and everything like that. I don't know if we're going to make the top 4 personally. So I put us in 5th. And then I would put Tottenham in 4th personally, and then I would keep Chelsea. Look, you can say Liverpool first. To be honest, it's between Liverpool and City. I haven't really decided on that who wins the league, but from at least 6 to 3 is that's my rating on there, and then Liverpool and City interchanged for me.
Well, let me go 1 through 6. I think Liverpool finish 1 and City will finish 2. They've shown cracks, but you have to think over a full Premier League season, consistently they'll get the job done when they have to. City's shown a lot of cracks early on to Leicester and Leeds, but those are two good teams on their day, and it looks like they really brought their A game when they played, and City kind of were off. But now that they have Ruben Diaz, now they have a proper center back, I think they'll for sure improve. But I think Liverpool just overall consistently be better as long as they're healthy, because they play in a way that's very tough to break. When you have fullbacks pressing and you have that midfield pushing high up, Van Dijk being the best center back in the league, they know how to win, and it's very hard to beat them consistently. When you have Alisson, it's a completely different game from when you have Adrian in net. He offers you a lot more, and simply I have to go based on reputation. I think Liverpool's attack with Salah and Mane being two of the top three wingers in the league, I think that will help them exponentially. And that's why I give them the edge over City. But early on, they both shown cracks, and they've shown big cracks, things that we haven't seen over the last 2 years. It's almost, we're unused to it because of the dominance that they've showed, especially Liverpool, over the last 2 years. So that's why I'm excited for this Premier League season, because the top two teams don't look as, as strong as they did in previous years, which can only make the league more exciting. And third, I have to go with Chelsea, simply because on paper, they look really good. And if they gel in the way that people expect, I think over a long season, they should be able to stay third, because I think other teams will have their moments of kind of disappointment. With regards to Arsenal, Spurs, Arsenal, Spurs, and Everton and United. But yeah, Chelsea improved the defense. They have a goalie that won't let in every other shot. Defensively, bringing Thiago Silva is huge, and they should be a lot more competitive on that end. And their attack really, on paper, looks like it could be a force to be reckoned with. Here's where I'll change up. I think Spurs are going to finish fourth. I love what I see from Harry Kane's son early on. I think they've strengthened in the attack. They got Bale. They I forget who they just bought, but they got another deadline day signing. They got, I think, a Portuguese striker in there who should be great for depth. And I think Jose Mourinho in the second season always does well. Jose Mourinho in the second season, we see it over and over again. And I'll go with history. I'll go with what I've seen before. I think with that documentary that came out, All or Nothing, I think it's almost given a new light on Jose Mourinho. And I think within the media, I think that has to help Spurs' case, because they almost have a better feeling around the club. It seems a feeling is always big, because when you look at United, everyone's down right now, but when you look at Spurs, kind of everyone's up. Everyone's kind of believe, Mourinho, the revival, Harry Kane's playing well, Heung-min Son's playing well. Now you have all they strengthen in the window, brought in Bale, brought in Reguilon. So when you have all those factors, I think that plays a big factor within a squad, and when you're keeping a squad healthy. And I think for that reason alone, I think Spurs will edge out Arsenal for fourth place. I think Arsenal have to finish fifth, simply because Mikel Arteta seems like he has a handle on what's going on. They're not going to play as well as they have early on. I think Arsenal don't have the squad depth to play consistently well over a 60-game season, or however many games they play. So for that reason, I'll give Arsenal the edge at fifth. And then you look at sixth place. It's really between Everton and United. And United, they have to start playing well quickly, because early on the signs aren't good. Everton, they seem like a complete different team. They bought a whole new midfield. You have Doucouré, James, and Alan in the midfield. Pickford, again, is not a very good goalkeeper, so he'll make his mistakes. But it's a tough position that United's put themselves in, because defensively they just look so bad early on. And as a Chelsea fan, I remember a few years ago under Mourinho, when we finished 10th and we fired him when we were in 17th. It's hard to believe a club that with all the history and with all the talent, we had Hazard, we still had Lampard in the team, I think John Terry was still playing, and it was just so hard to believe how bad they could be. But sometimes just some clubs struggle like that, and I know, Dario, you must be so frustrated watching that team, and I feel for you because that team looks horrible. And as a fan of soccer, you would never want your club to be that club right now, because just they look so so unorganized. They're playing with no heart. They just look like they're going through the motions. So United really have to quickly pull something out of their ass, because as a club and as a team, they look defeated. And other teams can smell blood. And United have to quickly kind of look at themselves in the mirror, take a hard look at themselves, and they have to realize that, look, we may be in danger of finishing 7, 8, 9 if we don't quickly start playing well and putting results together. Early on, you have to give the edge to Everton because they're in first place, undefeated. They haven't had a very tough schedule, but they've done what they've had to. There will be a drop-off for sure in performance because they're not going to play like they are throughout the entire season. But early on, as just a soccer fan, Everton's clearly playing better football. And could United easily finish 6th after, maybe firing Ollie and just revamping the squad? Maybe. But just like Chelsea had that horrible season in 2015, that's kind of what can happen to United. So you have to be aware of that as a fan and as a neutral, and that is a possibility. So again, we will see what happens. It's a long Premier League season. United fans, strap in, because it will for sure be a long season that you guys are probably already ready to be over. But a lot can happen. We will see what goes on. But for now, all we know is what we've seen. Hopefully United can play better, because for the sake of the league, United being close to the bottom doesn't help. It doesn't help generate revenue. It doesn't really help generate viewership. But Daria, for your sake, I'll give you the final word. But it may be a long Premier League season for you guys.
It may. And you know what? There's hopefully a light at the end of the tunnel coming up. I'm really hoping that the performances really do show. And all I can say is, as a United fan, we can all hope. We can all hope that things are going to go right, and that Ole can turn it around. Ole's at the wheel. Let's see. I'm hoping that that's the case.
Yeah, we will see. The NBA will be over next week. We will recap on SpiritLive, possibly the end of that series, and we will continue to break down the NFL and the Premier League. It was a very interesting episode of 5-5 Sports, an unprecedented week in sports, one of the craziest weeks that we will ever see. A lot of disappointment from the Cowboys fans, from United fans. Hopefully we can recover, and hopefully mentally we don't get too depressed watching these teams over a long season, because at this point, as a Cowboys fan, as a United fan, it just feels like it's going to be a long, rough ride for us. From 5-5 Sports, I'm Evan. See you guys next week on SpiritLive.
Thanks.